buyer notification form.
Can you say that again?
When did you start using the form?
This one right here?
Yes.
That's been a part of resale and disclosure since I've been managing. It's a part of the process that we are required, our company is required to work on our end of making sure it's disclosed.
Okay, so it's just recent.
Yeah, this is
So
not.
first of all, FSR is using this form, and they started with Johnson Ranch January 1st, 2018. So your form may not look like that prior to that.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the point, is that as part of the process, part of the title process is to fill out a form similar to this. It's a requirement.
If I bought a house in 2014 and I did not receive any notification of potential problems, then none exist?
It's not always true because the seller may not have disclosed it, and it's on the seller. Yes.
I think. Sure.
Okay, so along those same lines, think about when you buy your house, even out of an HOA, you get a seller's disclosure, hopefully. Like, that's ideal. We didn't, because our sellers didn't know anything, so they just said we don't know anything. But if they put that they did, they put that the roof was fine, and we buy the house, and a month later the roof's not, we go back to the seller on that. It's the same thing, it's just an added seller's disclosure that's specific to the HOA requirements. So it's not the management company's responsibility, it's not the board's responsibility, it's the seller's responsibility to disclose any HOA issues or any other issues within your home. If they do not do that, your recourse is with them, not us. Does that make sense? But we still have to enforce it.
I know what you're saying, but I don't know.
And that's perfectly fine, you don't have to agree, but that's the explanation, and it's state rules, so.
My name is Neil Carter. For those of us who live on one of the golf course greens, the back fencing is a see-through wrought iron. I'm wondering if we're subject to the same regulations as the front and the back.
Yes.
Yes. This is a few things.
Thank you. All right, let's move on.
Sandy.
Write down a question if you have an additional. We'll try to get back to it. So let's go ahead next.
Robin, can we just have one more?
Sure.
Okay, my question is, recently at a board meeting, you know that I attend every one of them, it was said that there were 69 boxes of documents that were in storage. And my question is there some of those documents in those boxes that are showing improvements that were made?
So those boxes were there before us. Those are boxes along the way that have been stored. I don't know, that would take a visit from board members going and looking in these boxes. Eventually, I think that's something that the community is going to want to do because that's what we just did with all the homeowner lot files. They're now digital. I would suggest that we do the same thing with these boxes, but until you physically go there and pull them and look at them. I have been told, and I'm not sure yet, but I have been told that a lot of them were more financial documents than homeowner lot file documents. Okay, so let's move on. Master plan update. It's on hold, and the board wanted me to just touch briefly on this. That, you know, once the walls in the community came to light, and as we started auditing them and finding that there were some areas of repair, we decided, of course, that it would be best for the community at whole. The board decided that it would be best for the community at whole that this be placed on hold until the wall audit is done so that we can determine the severity of the walls in the common area. We just completed the golf course view lot audit, and now we are working on every other area of the community. That is slated to be done in June or July of this year. So you can see that projects, sometimes they take a while because of the extensive research and on-site visits. So we do have a gentleman that is here almost every day trying to get through that project because he's promised a June, July delivery on that. The other part to this is the board has recently asked that we take a look at updating the reserve study. And we'd like to take a look at making sure that the walls are included in the reserve study as well. This kind of makes us want to just hang on a second and see what that's going to look like. Obviously, when you're adding an additional expense to the reserves, you are looking at the percentage, possibly dropping, and so then you start looking at your budgetary processes for how to make sure that you're keeping your reserves funded where they need to be funded. So it's kind of a two-part, but mainly just bottom line is that we want to get this wall audit done and see what we're looking at, the monetary bottom line on that before we move into improvements. I do want to say that the board is very aware, especially of some certain areas of the community. There's 4 areas. Tim might do much better than I would talking about those 4 areas, but it's just to let you know that they very much care about upgrading as well. But I think that everyone in this room would agree that we need to make sure that we're taking care of what we have right now before we're adding new. And so that's the board's process right now on that. So with that, are there any questions regarding this? Yes?
I got it.
It's been almost a year, I think, since we've been at one of these meetings, and prior to that, there was the plan was to reduce the irrigation grass there by 10% around the whole community, and then also they were going to spend, I don't know, a couple $100,000 for this and $700,000 for that, and if I remember right, there was sufficient money in there in the reserve to pay for this without damaging the reserve. And I know that Tim keeps up on all that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that what you're going to be studying? Is the amount of money that was in there even a year and a half ago, that apparently there was sufficient amount in there? Now, is that master plan now completely on hold? Because we were discussing about let's fix what we've got before we start taking on any more.
Right. So it's on hold, and then I would like Tim to just briefly touch on your question about the reserves. What I can tell you is the board most recently has had some conversation about turf reduction. We just don't have a plan yet. The landscaping company and I are working on a plan for the reduction of some turf in the area where it makes a lot of sense. And it just so happens that a lot of these areas are a part of the master plan. So because we have this master plan that eventually we would like to move forward with, we're finding that it might be a really good idea to go ahead and do the turf reduction because we already know where we want to reduce the grass in those areas. So, but with regards to the reserves, I would really like Tim to take that one.
I'll actually make 2 comments. One is back in the master plan. Again, the master plan process, just to enlighten the people that may not have attended some of those meetings, is we hired a professional landscape architect to look at the major areas, 21 parks within the community, and based on input and survey of the community, we said, number 1 was try and reduce turf. Number 2 was look where we could possibly put these kinds of amenities that were identified as possibilities, not guaranteed, but as possibilities. And that's what the main plan was, okay? Within that main plan, there were 4 projects that were identified, as you pointed out, that we were going to go ahead with, okay? And we were planning to, we actually have not only the master plan, we have the detailed drawing construction documents for those 4 areas, okay, which includes 2 are in the greens, putting splash pads into the greens, basketball courts, a splash pad into an area near near the Johnson Ranch Boulevard. So, and that money was all in the operating fund. It's still there, okay, because it was never a reserved item. It was always an operating item. That money is still there. We haven't spent that money, and that's the reason we haven't spent it is because of the walls. We want to understand what the wall situation will be, how much it will cost, and then we can potentially move ahead. As you know, Robin just said, the first priority is fix what we have now. That's the basic responsibility of the board. So if we have major issues potentially major issues like the walls, we've got to make sure we don't go ahead and spend money on additional activities or additional items until we have a better understanding of what that will be. So there is money that was allocated last year. What will happen is as we do at the end of every year, we look at how much our cash position is, how much we need to meet this year's budget, and then that'll identify the excess above what we as a result of not spending that money last year. So it's there in terms of, you know, should the wall project turn out to be less than we expected, there is potential money there to do some of these improvements, to do what Robin's talking about, which is in areas that we know we're going to do turf reduction and we can safely put in granite and not affect the master plan. We can potentially look at that. In terms of the reserve study, again, a question came up at the last board meeting. I didn't have the answer. We're 67% reserved as of year-end 2018. Our objective is to be 70%, so we're not quite there. And we'll just have to see as we go through this study and put in the additional costs that may occur with the walls, as well as potential costs of the erosion projects that we're working on, to see what the result will be in terms of the amount of money to try and achieve that 70% level. We won't do that overnight, but we'll try and do it in a reasonable time period. Does that answer the question?
You want to hand the microphone to Marcia?
So I just have a quick question prompted by my compatriot over here. Can you describe a little bit more what the problem is with the common area walls? So I've heard crumbling and I've heard improper design. Does it also affect our own walls that are around our home? So can you describe it a little bit more?
It may. If you have, you know, your common area back wall backing up to, common area, yes, there's potential for that. We won't know until the audit is complete.
But what's wrong?
We're not sure, quite honestly, in the beginning that the construction was done right by the builder. That is what we have run into. And we've looked at all different, you know, potential ways for repair, and we sought some really intelligent, experienced individuals who have come up with a good scope of work, but we don't want to just assume that every wall has a problem. That's why we are doing this audit. And even like in the original audit that was done, it was wonderful every time I saw a line that just indicated no concern, no issue. So the gentleman that's doing it, he's very thorough, he's very trusted in his industry. And we like for instance, the golf course, you know, they have wrought iron, and the bottom pony wall, it has crumbled and wrought iron falling to the point where we've actually had to put some chain link up in the interim. And I know that's frustrating for the homeowners that have that there now, but the reason why we have to hold off just for a bit and go in and making those immediate repairs. We did an immediate fix, but the immediate repairs is coming up with a scope of work that works, going out to bid, and then starting the process for repairs. So the board is moving on it. As mentioned earlier, the audit is taking quite a while. There's one back here?
Has it been decided regarding the golf course lots?
Yes.
Is responsible for the payment, or are we waiting for the rest of the audit, the wall audit?
I want to understand what you're saying. Would you mind?
Who will be responsible in regards to the golf course lots? Who will be responsible for the payment if it needs to be repaired?
Okay.
Has that been decided yet?
It actually, it has. And thank you. That's a good point you bring up, that there was some discussion in board meetings. Because your documents, they're unclear, you know, and we had our attorney look at it. And upon further review of the documents, he is comfortable with the HOA maintaining these walls. So, with that said, it will be an HOA expense. So, you know, there again, that's why we have to wait until we know what's going on before we can move on with other large financial. Okay, so I'm going to take one more on this, and then write your questions down, because if we have time.
I don't have a question. I just want to answer someone's question regarding what's wrong with the walls. Because our side yard backs up to Hunt Highway, and there were numerous mesquite trees along that wall, and they were uprooting underneath the block wall, and we can physically see car lights going through.
Yeah.
That is some damage, you know, car.
Yeah, that can happen. And typically when that happens, and if there's a tree that's either ready to fall or we can see it's going to cause damage, that's not something we can wait on. That's typically taken care of. However, in this audit, that will be addressed. If you think that if you're wondering if yours is going to be looked at, the answer is yes. So if you see someone taking pictures in your backyard, as long as they're there briefly and they leave, otherwise call. Okay, moving on. Thank you. How many of you are here for this one? Okay, Bob, can I get the handheld, please? So, Sterling and Equestrian tracks. How many Sterling and Equestrian do we have here tonight? Oh, nice. Good. So, modifications to documents. Let's see, I've been here for a year, and let's see, how do we put this gently? Well, so management is responsible for upholding and enforcing the governing documents. We can't show favoritism. We can't pick and choose what we're going to write up and who we're going to write up. That'll put us in court all day long. So, as crazy as this may sound, yet true, I can't not write up an RV parked in Sterling Equestrian where your documents specifically say it cannot be, regardless of what you've ever been told before I got here. I understand that's a real sore spot for some of you, thinking that I've ruined this parking for you. I apologize for any frustration that's caused, but it's also my job to ensure that I'm keeping the association out of court. You know? So if I'm writing said homeowner up for weeds, and I don't write homeowner and equestrian up for having an RV parked there, when the documents are clearer than clear that it can't be, okay? So here's the next step. Homeowners have come to me, frustrated that live there. I would be too. So we didn't just stop at that and say, nope, your documents say that. We literally, with board's permission, researched this heavily, and we asked the attorney, dig in, what makes sense, what can we do? In the CC&R's section 15.2, a tract declaration may be amended with approval of the board, approval of declarant if they own any property, and affirmative vote of members, owners who own lots within the affected tract, entitled to cast 75% or more, entitled to be case within the tract. So this is not a for sure thing. It's still being researched. And in our last meeting, board's very, open and gracious to us looking at this for possibility of change for these two separate tracks. So, basically, we are going to be sending a letter to the homeowners in those tracks because we want to know, from you, your specific tract. What does that look like to you? What do you want? Do you want to be able to park your RV there? So I'm in the process of constructing that letter. Go to the board, of course, for their approval before it would go to homeowners, because we need to get some feedback from the homeowners in those tracks. See, here's the wonderful thing about this. By the way, how many of you have voted? Okay, we're going to get to that in a little bit, okay? We literally do have a hard time getting participation from homeowners in the community. So can you imagine how nearly impossible, miracles do happen, but nearly impossible it would be if these tracks, did not allow for this possibility of the individual tract voting. So rather than having to get 75% of 6,071 homes, we're now looking into, and I'm going to stress it, the possibility. No one is saying this is going to happen, but I'm sharing with you that the board is open to having this looked at because it starts with their approval and then it will go to these communities. But what this means is if there's 50 homes, you're only needing 75% of those 50 homes of the individual equestrian Sterling tracks, okay? I thought that was great news. I thought that's, at least that there's something in there that allows. Now I'm going to share a little bit of a flip side for you because, this is stated as well. There are homeowners who have complied. But we all know too, laws change or things come to light, when they need to, or there's workabouts, or there's ways things that can be done, and as long as it can be done legally, that's what's being looked at. Michelle?
I just want to clarify that Sterling is one track, equestrian is another track. So if equestrian decides to pass whatever and 75% say yes, that is just the equestrian. The Sterling people would have to do their own rule and get 75%.
Michelle, tell everybody where those tracks are.
Oh, okay. So let's say we're driving down Hunt Highway and we're headed towards Walmart, and you've got the Solera side on the left-hand side as you're heading towards Walmart. Equestrian and Sterling are on the right-hand side.
They got those itty-bitty little places.
Yeah. Most houses are about an acre, approximately.
Small compared to my son.
And again, the intent of this letter is the request, the issue came out of in terms of RVs, but there may be other things that the homeowners in that particular tract potentially want to do. So the idea is to go out once and get the input from all those homeowners in terms of what you want to be able to do within the rules for those particular tracks.
I have a quick question.
She's got the mic.
I got the mic. I have a quick question. I am from Equestrian Manor, and my backyard does back up to Hunt Highway. One of my questions is, I know you're trying to look in the legal sense of how the HOA can approve that. Because Hunt Highway had been extended, my RV is even more noticeable now. Could that possibly be one of the reasons why it would be okay for our section to have RVs? It seems like my RV shows more now because Highway has widened and the wall didn't come up anymore.
I can't see that there's really any specific, list of reasons other than kind of what's been talked about tonight. And quite honestly, we may come back with something and the board may, ask for some additional stipulations of some sort. For instance, I believe, was it equestrian? I think a while back, documents were amended that a horse trailer, could be parked back there as long as it was screened nicely. So yes, you may park back there, but it needs to be screened. So
do we put like a submission, like a paper?
Yeah, so we don't know the process, but it would be, so first of all, the letter goes out and there'll be room for you to respond and send back. And then eventually it would be a consent form once we figure out everything that needs to go, on that form. As Tim mentioned, for additions that those communities are interested in seeing, that would be the time, to get everything kind of one and done. Okay, so if we can move on, are there 10 more?
Okay, one more.
One more?
Where?
Okay.
Where?
Yeah, well, I didn't want to leave too many out
Moved
on
on.
that.
I'm encouraged by what you just said, because Sterling and the equestrian are kind of a unique area in Johnson Ranch. They don't back up to anything else. They don't connect with anything else. There's only the 2 entrances in there. They don't even connect with the other properties that are directly across from Solaris. So it is kind of a unique situation over there. So I'm very encouraged to hear that, because there's a reason why we bought in the area that we did. And but I see now no metal structures permitted. That has not been the case.
Where's Bob? You need to take that one. Mr. Rooney? He's talking. He's designed the review.
Pay attention, Bob.
That's okay, he was answering a question. Bob, metal structures.
This lady nicely over here had a question about metal structures, so be nice.
I will, but someone has a question for you over here, Michelle, so let's switch. Thank you. Metal structures, yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, I was trying to answer a question for someone.
It's not been a problem in the area. And so my question is, if the owners in the area have no problem with it, why is it giving somebody heartburn now if all the owners in there don't have a problem with metal structures in that section?
Okay, if you're talking about what I think you're talking about, like a garage in the back or something like that, am I correct?
Yes.
The CC&R state and the design review policy states that it has to match the home. Steel does not match stucco. Okay?
Yes.
I understand what you're saying. I'm not taking away from that. The board had presented to them on at least one occasion that I know of. The design review said one thing, they appealed it to the board. The board said, you can do this building, and there's one that has a nickname for it, but it's a nice building. That's yours? No. Oh, okay. Yeah, I know. Like I said, we've had some opportunities. Previous boards have approved 1 or 2 of them. We have, design review has to live with it, management has to live with it, the board now has to live with those decisions that have already been made.
But this is why we're opening it up.
Okay?
You're going to get a letter. You're going to state in there that that's something you're interested in. This is your opportunity to do that.
So that even though this says, which it did not say previously, I see it in here now, but that's not.
I can't promise anything on a board decision or what. If it's document written, I would venture to say that would be difficult to change, except you're talking about your tract, right? And that's exactly what the purpose of this letter going out is. For those types of things to be listed, and then 75 to 100% agree that that's okay. That may or may not be something, that the board would even consider having as a part of a change.
So I think what you're speaking to specifically was actually just done at a board meeting a couple months ago. So, like you said, there are metal buildings. It's happened. Bob's kind of explained. Some of them were because they appealed to the board. Some of them were because it didn't specifically say no metal and it got approved. However that happened. There were, just because maybe nobody's complained that you're aware of doesn't necessarily mean we haven't fielded complaints. There have been some that's brought it to our attention. It was becoming a huge issue for the design review committee, and so they brought it to the board's attention. And then the board decided to take their recommendation, which was to go ahead and reword that section in what you're referencing, the design application process. But what Robin's talking to now, we can, again, change it. like you said, it wasn't in there before. You're right, it wasn't. That was a very recent decision, and it was because we were asked to approve it, and we did because that's what they asked for, and they had good reason. But we can change it again should you guys decide. We're giving you the opportunity to write your own story, to write your, set your destiny. You live there, you own the property. Legally, our CCNRs are allowing us to do this, and we want to give you that opportunity. So use it wisely. Is my recommendation. Get what you can, because we don't want to go back and do this again every 6 months, a year, 5 years. And we're going to make it so that you can enjoy where you live as best as possible. But that's what started that change that you're referencing, and it was a recent change. You're right. So grandfathered in places are grandfathered in. But moving forward, that's what we're going with.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any others, write them down and we'll circle back around if we have time. Okay, so social media. How many of you believe everything you read on social media? You're giggling. Why? So I really don't have a lot of thoughts on this, other than just to share that as your management company, we are happy to answer any questions you may have. You'll note that I don't go on there and maybe give correct information when there's a lot of misconceptions out there. Part of that, and the board is basically told the same thing. We're at your service, and we really are bound by. The next thing we say, could be something that could create a problem. So social media is not somewhere where we're going to go on and communicate. But I just want you to know that the office is very open. I am as well, to answering questions you may have, rather than taking the word of someone out there that you hear, and boy, I would love to say I don't even know where that came from. I still am not going to. I can't, and I don't have time to monitor. Homeowners bring it to me, and they're questioning things, a lot, and I appreciate that, because then I'm able to give the correct information. So this is in no way, asking people to, it's a freedom of speech. I don't have a problem with that. It's just, maybe if you're going to share something, you might want to ask the facts before you do. That would be really helpful, because it would be better to have a correctly informed community rather than a lot of confusion. So with that, anyone have anything they want to say? Sandy.
I'm answering a question. Where do I need to go? Right here? Here we go.
Yeah, everybody pretty much knows. Sorry, I don't need a microphone, I don't think. That I am on social media, and my question is, when somebody asks a question about, hey, when is the garage sale, or hey, when is this or that, and I reply, we have a Johnson Ranch Community Association Facebook page. I'd like to see something more on that than just events. Why can't they post, some of these things? Like right now, I don't see anything about the candidates that are for the board. On the Community Association Facebook.
So I know that there's a few of them, and there's only, I believe, 2 so Constant Contact is one way we communicate, and Corey, our lifestyle coordinator, she puts things on there. I can have her add it to that as well. We're also working on utilizing the Connect app as well, because that captures even more people. So,
well, last year, the videos, the links to the videos, and the bios for the candidates were on the Community Association Facebook page. They're not this year.
Okay. So, if there's something that you as a community would like, one thing that I would maybe ask for, even just as an individual, it's a really easy email or phone call saying, hey, Have you thought about this? Rather than it stirs up and it causes angst in the community as if we're not listening or doing our job. Sometimes it really helps when someone goes, have you thought about putting it here? We've got it, where all do we have this right now? We have it on Constant Contact. I wasn't sure if Corey had put it on Facebook or not, but we'll make a note of that. But also through Connect, which captures a lot more emails as well. But we'll look, because I don't know, I know that there's a few Facebook pages out there.
It's on YouTube.
Yeah, and well, YouTube, yeah. And I don't have access to those. We do have access to the one that Corey monitors where she puts her activities and things. I think it's a great idea to place it there as well.
Well, that's where it was last year, where all the videos for the candidates and their bios were put last year.
Okay, wonderful. So that's an easy fix. Anything else? Yes.
Okay, on the come.
Well, for many months, we used to get the Johnson Ranch pamphlet, leaf, whatever that thing was called. And then we started missing it like every 2 or 3 months. Here it is, March, and I don't think we've had one since November.
Canceled.
So is that has that been put to rest and we no longer have it? Like I said, I haven't been to one of these meetings, but
it's a work in progress. So what I can share with you is the company that was doing this, they changed their story really, really quick. There was no cost to the association to overnight. It was going to be astronomical to the association. So in all honesty, we've had so many things going on in the office, especially with this design review. Other things I won't bore you with. It's like 99.9% ready to go, and we're working on getting out as soon as we can because it's another thing that's been added to our job description, our plate, if you will. Happy to do it. Corey's working on putting that together for us. And when we send out the first issue, we are really open to ideas you may have for something that you'd like to see in it, because we really can create it to be whatever the community wants. We've just really tried to pull together what was done, researched other communities to see what they had done in theirs, and we'll go from there. But we are working as quickly as we can with everything that we faced recently. It did get pushed back some, but we are going to get that started again. And I think we're doing it quarterly or quarterly?
Electronic, I believe, unless they want to.
Yes, it is electronic, but please, if you know someone that needs a copy or whatever, we're happy to print a copy for someone who would like it. We might even, think about printing a few copies to bring to people who don't have social media, but it's a work in progress. Okay, let's go to transparency. So this is a reoccurring theme in meetings. We hear this a lot. You're not transparent. We want transparency. So the board really wanted this put out to the owners. Give some description of what it is you think is not being as transparent as you would like it. I'm going to be writing these ideas down, and it might bring up some comments, from the board of directors. They may have, they may want to dig for additional information to understand, or they might explain to you maybe why certain things are not as transparent as you feel they should be. But anyone want to put in on where you feel board and management could be better with transparency? Sure.
So I'm not sure where the transparency is coming from.
That's why it's here
I'm
tonight.
not sure
We're
where that's coming
figuring
from.
that out ourselves.
It's feeling like there's not transparency, but I think this meeting is excellent. It's been an excellent forum, and I really appreciate the excellent job that you've done.
Thank you.
It's been great.
Anyone?
I'm going to add something that wasn't on the board up there. And it had to do with plants in your front yard. Now you talk about transparency, communicating and so forth. Well, Well, I've got a couple trees that are having a problem. So it says citrus, fruit trees. Is it all tree a fruit tree?
Oh, olive?
Yeah.
He's talking about the olive tree. I have not.
You better sit down over there.
We love you.
No, you don't.
Yes, we do. Corey and I Googled it when you called the other day, and it says it's a fruit tree.
Googled me?
Your olive tree. But you said aloe tree, and we were wondering why you wanted an aloe tree in your front yard. It looks like from the land of the desert, the dinosaur time. No, it did say it was a fruit tree, but...
So it is a fruit tree.
Well, per Google, the internet, but you can't believe the internet for everything, so...
So an orange tree is actually a bush.
Really?
Yes. We made it into a tree. An orange tree, an orange bush at one time.
So what is your question?
Get to the point. Anybody else have a question at this point?
Transparency on the Magma Road,
Where are you?
right here. The Magma Road out on the south side.
We're getting to that.
Okay, well, that has been no transparency there whatsoever since it started.
We'll be there in a bit. Anyone else? On transparency, maybe something that you feel we could do a better job at, even as management.
Not being real. Oh. Can you make it easier to get to the websites? We purchased our house December 2005. There was a great website, easy to pay bills, blah, blah, blah. Moved down here in 2014. Somebody redesigned a website. Okay, now that one's not there, but you have to go to like 3 or 4 different places. And I'm not that tech savvy, obviously, at my age, but it's not easy. I go in and pay my bill by check. I don't like your websites.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. We're actually working with corporate on that because we have heard you and other homeowners. I don't have an answer for that yet, but we're meeting with her name's Brandy at First Service to see if we can get some answers on that for you. Yes.
Yes, I'd just like to see more transparency on the landscaping moving forward as far as what's coming up with landscaping, you know, when they're going to be fertilizing, aerating, that kind of thing.
Okay. And I think we have that down right for them. Thank you for that. Yes. You need a microphone?
I don't know if this fits under transparency, but I just, in recognizing the size of the crowd tonight compared to what I've seen at other meetings, and I've been to quite a few meetings, it seems like maybe this sort of an event is something that we need more often. And whatever the agenda may be, mix it up, try some different things, but I think obviously people enjoy this and see a value in it.
Thank you for that. I don't know why that can't, happen moving forward, especially with a lot of the big projects we have going on. So I will definitely chat with the board on that and see about adding more.